Welcome again to Rewind. We're here at Doha's Museum of Islamic Art to mark the 10th anniversary of Al Jazeera English by taking a fresh look at some of the best documentaries of the past decade. This week, we rewind to 2014, when People and Power travelled to Southeast Asia to investigate the trafficking and abuse of Burma's Muslim minority, the Rohingya, who are caught up in a large-scale humanitarian crisis across the region. Later, we'll be asking whether the situation has improved for the Rohingya since our cameras left. But first, let's watch that film.
These are the concentration camps of Rakhine State in Burma, also known as Myanmar. Today, more than 100,000 Rohingya Muslims live inside the wire, trapped between armed guards and the sea. Most are here because of violence in the summer of 2012. Long-running tensions between ethnic Rakhine Buddhists and the Rohingya Muslim minority erupted into communal riots. The violence was sparked by reports that Muslim men had raped and killed a Buddhist woman. Vigilante mobs responded by razing entire communities as Burmese security forces turned a blind eye. Mohammed Idris saw his younger brother murdered by a Rakhine mob. Idris and many others in the camps want to escape to Malaysia, a Muslim country, but they're fleeing into the hands of traffickers who torture them for ransom and sell them into slavery. For the Rohingya lucky enough to make it to Malaysia, conditions are far worse than they expect. But more and more are still attempting the journey as the threat of Buddhist extremism intensifies in Burma. U Pinya Sami heads a monastery in Sitwe. Senior Buddhist leaders have stoked ethnic tension since the violence first broke out. The monk insists the Rohingya are illegal immigrants from Bangladesh and calls them Bengalis. However, many displaced Rohingya families in the Sitwe camps have lived in Burma for generations.
We are born here, my grandfather and my grandmother, my father and then my mother. And my father and then my mother, they married in this country. And after I am born here, this is our nationality. We are not a family. Why does not recognize us as the nationality by the name of Rohingya?
Upaik Twe is Burma's Deputy Minister of Information. He says the Rohingya are in the camps for their own protection. In fact, food is in short supply and aid groups have been kicked out. Deprived of doctors and medicine, Rohingya are dying from treatable illnesses like tuberculosis, malaria, and diarrhea.
Everyone can feel like me. So our community have hopeless and jobless. So we go to other side.
To get to the other side, Rohingya refugees travel some 1,500 miles through the Bay of Bengal to Thailand, and then several hundred miles overland to Malaysia. Abdul Kalam is a Rohingya activist based in Thailand. He says that brokers in the camps are on the payroll of Thai traffickers.
ว่าคุณจะไปทำงานไหมทำงานที่มาเลเซียไหมโดยที่ไม่ต้องเสียตังค์เอาเสียตังค์นิดหน่อย
Man bishireu tin sashto.
Last September, Noran Kees and her husband paid a Rohingya smuggler $600 each to escape the Sittwe camps by boat.
Bada mader mane ko sir de time ase abdi otmai hotto de.
On reaching Thai shores, they were driven to a camp deep in the jungle where they were held for ransom.
Ara kem mane beg gun 2000 tagi itara khudun nala khudun tane 3000 2000 2000 durgurat tagi atira ase cha quality atira ase sahazun takar karne sahazun tagi intera beshi मैं उड़ने हमारे मौतन उठते हैं लामाने भी आ रहा मैं मर जाएगा तो बॉडली भी आ रहा मुक्कलो ये मर जाएगा इन्हें एक दूर में गरम मसाला दिया रहा इन्हें ज़ोलम माना वाले नौरे गरम में दूर दी
Noran Kees's family paid her ransom after 2 months, but could not afford to free her husband.
หัวละ 70,000 บาทและ 60,000 บาทคุณบวกไปว่าเท่าไหร่500คนแต่เขาช่วยกันได้เอาเงินเห็นได้เอาเงินไม่เห็นแก่พี่น้องโรฮิงญาลำบาก
Abdul Kalam works to free refugees from the camps of traffickers, some of whom are also Rohingya. During our visit, he received a tip about a traffickers camp near the border. We went to check it out.
Here, maybe 600 people, 500 to 600 people. We managed.
To protect their profits, trafficking rings rely on extensive lookout networks. The noises turned out to be a farmer. The traffickers had already struck their camp and moved on.
So, sometimes helicopter come in and airplane come in. You want to save. They go down. Nobody can see. And evening he come out study these people. This bamboo, and beat in the Rohingya. Telephone, you contact to your family. So telephone say hello and beat it. So like that.
That's what happened to Muhibullah and Hassan, who endured vicious abuse for 2 months after leaving Burma late last year.
Ara majjere tiadina fadina alla majjere. Ara en lawre banya kana tin lawre banya. Losele bani bada ta bani ada me anne entunu sarida hote goye 10 12 na entun bag lo yare chon to ikkudu mara oshali gore ede kechuta dunia no diki ha gadde ta badan tutuli badam motto nada ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಂಗೊರಿ ಡಂಡ gola di ಎಂಗ ನಡ ಬೈ ಮಜ್ಜೆ ಬೆಕ್ಕುನ ಮಜ್ಜೆ 10 12 বার ধরে মাঝে দেড় মানুষ হাতুরো গিয়ে তাবাদে মরিও গিয়ে দেড় আছে বজন ওল্লা কেন যাবে দুনিয়াতে ফানে দে ওল্লা কিয়ামতে দে ওল্লা লাগি দে
We asked Abdul Kalam to call a trafficker who's holding the brother of a man we met in the Sittwe camps, but he declined.
ถ้าสมมุติว่าเขาโทรศัพท์ปุ๊บมีญาติโทรศัพท์รับโทรศัพท์ปุ๊บโดนตีถ้าสมมติไม่มีญาติเขาไม่โดนตีเท่าไหร่
Kalam says the traffickers have raised the price on his head to $67,000 for meddling with their business.
2 million baht for me kill me so he want to try but I have to Allah help me.
In a village close to the Malaysian border, he took us to meet a Thai Muslim family with a secret.
So have the hole downstairs under the ground.
Beneath the family home is a hidden room for Rohingya refugees on the run from Thai authorities and traffickers. Local lookouts will turn them over to traffickers for a small price. And if Thai police arrest them first, they could face indefinite detention in notoriously bad conditions.
So, and police go, and broker go, and again go upstairs.
The owner of the house says his family is the only one in the village helping Rohingya refugees.
ก็ที่ยังไม่รู้จักบางกันก็เขาคิดว่าเขาเป็นโรยได้เหมือนกันที่ให้ปิดไปด้วยกันเนี่ยเราไม่รู้ ตอนที่ยังไม่รู้จักบังกาลัม
Are there many brokers in this area?
ในหน้านี้เยอะกว่าคนที่อยู่ทั้งหมดถ้าเกิดคนอยู่100ก็ในหน้าก็ประมาณก็70
A veteran trafficker in the region agreed to speak with us if we kept her anonymous. She handles logistics for a syndicate run by a Malaysian businessman. The meeting was recorded with a hidden camera.
แต่ว่าเรื่องนี้มันขึ้นมาเป็น10 ปีแล้วแหละ10 ปีแล้วใครก็ไม่สนใจแล้วเลย
Contacted by boatmen arriving from Burma, she coordinates their reception on Thai shores.
แล้วก็บางทีอาจจะมันผ่านไปแล้วก็มันก็ไม่เจอกันนะตำรวจจับแล้วก็
When boats are intercepted by Thai authorities, she says officers can easily be paid off for about $70 a person or $3,200 a boat.
แต่ก่อนนั้นก็เอาก็คนละ 2,000 เลยเมาเลย100,000แต่ตอนนี้เมาเลย
At this point, the Rohingya refugees are nothing more than cargo to be delivered to jungle prisons and sold.
คนมันตอนนี้เป็นน้ำพริกซะแล้วให้มันนอนอยู่ทับอยู่แล้วก็ปิดผ้าไว้
Once in the camps, the traffickers aim to torment the captives and their families to extract ransoms.
ถ้าไปใน7 วันไม่มาแทงแล้วก็กูขายเลยพูดแบบนั้นที่นี่ไปใน7 วันมาไม่ทันใช่ไหมเอาโทรศัพท์เธอไปแล้วทางนู้นถ้ารู้จับแล้วก็มันทุบตรงนี้ทุบว่าเล่าพี่ช่วยหน่อยน้องจะตายมันก็อย่างนี้เราจะเธออยู่ได้ไหมเธอขายหีก็ต้องมาให้น้องแทงคนเลยถูกไหมเล่นจริงน่ะ
If the families can't come up with the money, the traffickers often sell Rohingya into slavery for about $1,500 to work on fishing boats, farms, and as household servants.
แต่คนที่ไม่มีก็ไปขายข้าวมาเลยแล้วก็ไปขายเลยรวยแกเอา 5,000 ทำงานสัก 3 ปี
Women are also sold into marriage and the sex trade. That's what happened in the camp where Noor Ankis was held.
in mainan beshi diro logo tarar gulla kedi inara no dike in durlo jago bade al gulla kedi.
Muhibullah says in the camp where he was imprisoned, women were repeatedly dragged off into the bush and raped. The operative claims that no one escapes from the traffickers.
นี่ไม่ได้หรอกนี่ไม่ได้ไม่มีใครหนีได้หรอกโดนจับได้หมดทางเวียทุบเลยถามได้ตายไปตั้งกี่คนแล้วไม่รู้ทุบเลยทุบกับตายเลยเหรอ
She says the trafficking profits are way up thanks to the surge of Rohingya refugees. Top bosses are making a fortune, leaving plenty of money to pay off Thai authorities.
โทษติดคุกตัวเดียวล้านนึงก็ตัวจ่ายคนนั้นจ่ายไม่ได้คนนั้นไม่มี
Thailand's record in combating human trafficking has been appalling.
Matthew Smith is the director of Fortify Rights, a group that has been investigating human rights abuses against Rohingya in the region.
In some cases, Thai authorities are actively participating in the trafficking in persons. And this has been going on for a very long time.
This includes the transport and sale of Rohingya refugees from Thai detention centers to traffickers operating the jungle camps. In June, the U.S. State Department downgraded Thailand to its lowest ranking for failing to combat human trafficking. It cited corruption at all levels.
Since I was here, my first priority, I said, no more human trafficking here in the south.
Tachai Pitanilabut is commander of immigration police in southern Thailand.
I already arrested about 3 or 4 gangs, big gangs that do the trafficking.
But so far, Pitanilabut has not brought any charges against Thai police or officials. There's been a lot of talk about corruption in the Thai government and among Thai authorities.
I still cannot find anyone, good evidence.
Pitanilabut says trafficking bosses protect themselves with layers of operatives who do the dirty work. These men were rounded up last year.
When we arrest someone here, it's very difficult to get evidence back to the big guy. They have lots of money to hire a good lawyer.
The commander says the traffickers are adapting to his enforcement efforts by shifting their location.
And now they are going deeper and deeper in the jungle.
This footage was shot during a recent raid by Commander Tachai's forces on a remote camp near the Malaysian border. As the last frontier most Rohingya refugees must cross, it's the epicenter of trafficking operations in the country. Hundreds of refugees were at the site. Some were too weak to run away. All of the refugees who were picked up were taken to a regional detention center.
In Thai detention facilities, they're denied adequate humanitarian aid. The abuses that they're enduring every step of the way are in many ways similar.
At this facility near the border, the guards would not permit us to film the detainees' quarters. We asked the staff if they knew a man named Ahmed Khan. To our astonishment, they brought him down.
Is this your wife?
It's okay. It's okay. My wife, Nurankis. That's name Nurankis.
Khan is the husband of the woman whose relatives paid a ransom to get her released. He was rounded up by police in a March raid on a traffickers' camp.
She's very worried about you, but she wants to let you know that she is okay.
Shukriya, shukriya. It's very much. Thank you. I wala bishi kature. I ajuda hani beru wala bamala bishi kature.
The guards didn't understand the Rohingya language, so we were able to ask Khan about the conditions upstairs. He said that officials from the UN High Commission on Refugees, UNHCR, came to the facility but ignored him.
The UN is mandated to protect refugee populations, and right now the UN is not living up to its mandate in Thailand. This is an objective fact.
We've been trying right from the beginning to find an alternative to these detention centers.
Vivian Tan is the UNHCR's regional spokesperson in Bangkok. She argues that Thai officials are dragging their feet. And the complaint we often heard was that UNHCR has come by, taken notes, and left, and there's been no follow-through.
I think several attempts were made by the authorities to identify and sites and try and start building something as an alternative. But because of local opposition, it hasn't been able to take place.
The systems don't seem to be in place in Malaysia either, the promised land for thousands of Rohingya fleeing persecution in Burma. The most common jobs for refugees are as garbage collectors or laborers on construction sites.
There are thousands upon thousands of Rohingya living in the shadows of Malaysia, in some ways driving the economy forward through construction work and other types of employment, where they face a great deal of labor exploitation. And it shouldn't be this way. The UN is there to provide protection to refugees who arrive in Malaysian territory, and as of right now, we're not seeing that.
We're doing what we can. I would be the first to admit that if we had greater resources, we would be able to do more.
Richard Towell is the UNHCR representative in Malaysia.
We're not a government, we're not a state. We are a temporary surrogate for state responsibility. But so far, it's a policy area that government, for its own reasons, has chosen not to go to.
With so many Rohingya pouring into the country, Towell says the UNHCR can only help the most desperate.
We need to find ways of getting to people who are more vulnerable than the already vulnerable, and in that category are women, unaccompanied children, particularly from the Rohingya caseload, who have suffered enormously in their own countries, suffered terribly in the transit routes towards Malaysia, and find themselves in very difficult and uncertain circumstances here.
Noran Kees made it through to Malaysia. Today she makes $3 a day at a roadside cafe. She was thankful for news of her husband, but life in the shadows is hard, and she wonders if they will ever be reunited. Back in Burma, where Noran Kees and her husband's journey started, government officials claim that conditions in the camps are not forcing the Rohingya to flee. But inside the camps, another day brings another Rohingya death. Today it's 2-year-old Mohammed Johor, who died of diarrhea-related complications. His funeral procession passes an empty government health clinic. Relief supplies and doctors remain scant, and barracks are now under construction to house guards to keep the Rohingya penned in.
There's been no talk whatsoever, no serious talk about Rohingya returning home. This is more than 2 years after they were burned out of their homes and villages, which is a problem. And now, on top of that, Rakhine political operatives are proposing to increase the size of detention camps.
Very strategically they did it. First created the situation and also blocked the international community, thirdly giving facilities to the human traffickers, with the police and immigration taking the money.
The number of people getting on boats, risking their lives to leave this situation is only increasing. That rests on the shoulders of the international community that is ultimately failing to respond in a way that will promote the human rights of this population.
As the bad weather begins to break, boat builders are getting ready for the next wave of travelers. Mohammed Idris will be among those heading out.
Years on, we caught up with an expert on the current situation there.
Governments in the region today, they've shown no improvement in protecting the rights of Rohingya refugees since 2014 and before. So unfortunately, we haven't seen any fundamental improvements. We documented a number of mass grave sites throughout the areas of southern Thailand and on the Malaysia border. And these were graves that were filled with Rohingya victims of human trafficking that have littered the terrain in that part of the country. The Thai authorities, under pressure from the international community, decided to take action to stop some of these human trafficking pipelines going through Thailand. As a result, there were, in some cases, dozens of boats filled with survivors or people who were potentially going to be trafficked, Rohingya who had fled Myanmar. Dozens of these boats were abandoned at sea. This created a crisis situation. Right now, our hope is being tested by the intransigence of the Myanmar government. There's a complete blackout in northern Rakhine State in some of these areas, so the government is completely denying access to aid agencies and to journalists and to human rights monitors. And this is creating an environment in which atrocity crimes are being committed right now. It's our understanding there are several thousand children among this particular population of Rohingya who are suffering from severe acute malnutrition. We could see upwards of more than 1,000 children may die very soon if access is not granted.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. You can catch that film again on the Rewind webpage, and that's where you can also leave your comments about this or any other programme in the series. Otherwise, until next time, it's goodbye.